The great dome of the Galactic Assembly rose above the crystal plains of Nexera Prime like a mountain made of glass and light. Inside, 1,000 different species sat in their seats. They came from every corner of the galaxy. Some had scales, some had feathers, some were made of living stone. They had gathered here for 3,000 years to make laws and keep peace among the stars. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood at the center of the chamber. She was a small woman with gray hair and tired eyes. Behind her sat the human delegation, 12 men and women who had traveled across the void to represent Earth and all its colonies. They wore simple black uniforms, no gold, no jewels. The other species often laughed at how plain humans looked. Today, no one was laughing. High Speaker Morvath of the Nixari floated above the central podium. His body was made of silver light, and his voice echoed through every mind in the chamber. "We shall now vote on Resolution 7291, he announced. The formal censure of the United Terran Federation for illegal interference in the internal affairs of the Velthari supremacy. Elena kept her face calm. She had known this day would come. For 20 years, she had watched the other species grow jealous of humanity. They did not like how humans made friends so easily. They did not like how humans solved problems that had lasted for centuries. Most of all, they did not like how the younger species looked to humans for guidance instead of the ancient races. The Velthari had finally found their weapon. 6 months ago, human agents had helped slaves escape from Velthari mining worlds. It was against assembly law to interfere with another species' internal matters. But those slaves were being worked to death. Children were dying in the mines. Elena had given the order herself. Ambassador Threlvox of the Velthari slithered to the speaking platform. His body was long and covered in black scales. His eyes burned like red coals. "Humans believe they are better than us," he hissed. "They break our laws and call it justice. They steal our property and call it mercy. They are a disease that must be cut out before it spreads." The chamber filled with sounds of agreement, clicking and buzzing and howling from 100 different throats. Elena watched the voting lights appear above each delegation. Green for yes, red for no. The green lights spread across the chamber like a wave. Only 12 stayed red, 12 species out of 1,000 who still remembered what humans had done for them. "The vote is complete," High Speaker Morvath announced. 847 inches favor, 12 against. Resolution 7291 passes. The United Terran Federation is hereby censured. All human military vessels must withdraw from. "That will not be necessary," Elena said. The chamber fell silent. No one interrupted the High Speaker. It was not done. Elena walked slowly to the ancient podium at the center of the room. This podium had stood for 3,000 years. Every species that joined the assembly placed their founding document upon it. It was a symbol of unity, of shared purpose. She reached into her coat and pulled out a thin folder. Inside was the Treaty of Terra, the document that had brought humanity into the Galactic Assembly 300 years ago. Her grandmother had signed it. Her mother had defended it. Elena had spent her whole life serving it. She placed it on the podium. Then she stepped back. "The United Terran Federation formally withdraws from the Galactic Assembly," she said. Her voice was steady. Effective immediately. For a long moment, nothing happened. The aliens did not understand. In 3,000 years, no species had ever left the assembly. It was unthinkable. Where would they go? How would they survive? Then chaos erupted. High Speaker Morvath's form flickered with confusion. "Ambassador Vasquez, you cannot simply leave. There are treaties, obligations, trade agreements that span centuries. All void," Elena said. As of now, the Cathari delegation, insectoid creatures with clicking mandibles, rose from their seats. "This is madness. You need our technology." The Dravishi, tall beings with 4 arms and blue skin, shouted over them. "You need our food shipments. Your colonies will starve." Elena smiled. It was not a happy smile. "Perhaps, but I think you have forgotten something important." She turned to face the chamber. 1,000 alien eyes stared back at her. For 300 years, they had looked down on humanity. They called humans young, primitive, emotional. They tolerated humans because humans were useful, good at talking, good at fixing problems, good at the small, boring work that kept civilization running. They had never asked themselves what would happen if humans stopped. "You will regret this," Threlvox hissed. He rose from his seat. his scales rattling with anger. You are weak, fragile. You live barely a century. What can you possibly do without us? Elena looked at him. For a moment, she almost felt sorry for him. Almost. I suppose we will find out, she said. But I wonder, Ambassador, if you have ever asked yourself the opposite question. She turned and walked toward the exit. Her delegation followed in silence. Their footsteps echoed in the stunned chamber. What question? Threlvox demanded. Elena paused at the door. She looked back at the chamber, at the 1,000 species who had voted against her people. Some had done it from hatred, some from jealousy. Most had simply followed the crowd, too afraid to stand alone. What will you do without us? She did not wait for an answer. The Terran ships left Nexera Prime before the sun rose. Within one day, every human ambassador in assembly space had received the same message. Come home. Within 1 week, every human citizen had been evacuated from alien worlds. Scientists left their research, teachers left their students, doctors left their patients. The borders of Terran space sealed shut. No ships entered, no signals escaped. The humans had surrounded their territory with automated defense platforms years ago. Everyone had laughed at them for being paranoid. No one was laughing now. High Speaker Morvath called an emergency session of the assembly. The delegates argued for days. Some wanted to send a fleet to force the humans back. Others wanted to wait and see what happened. The Velthari insisted that nothing would change. Humans were not important. They were just convenient. High Counselor Cerethi of the Nexeri sat in her chamber and watched the chaos. She was old, even by Nexeri standards. She remembered when the first human ship had arrived at Nexera Prime. She remembered the strange, soft creatures who stepped out of it. They had been so young, so full of hope. They had looked at the galaxy and seen not threats, but friends waiting to be made. She had voted against Resolution 7291. She was one of the 12. Now she wondered if she should have done more, spoken louder, fought harder. But she had been afraid. Afraid of the Velthari, afraid of the mob, afraid of standing alone. She looked out her window at the stars. Somewhere out there, behind walls of silence and steel, the humans were waiting, and the galaxy had no idea what was coming. 6 months passed. The galaxy did not fall apart. At least, not at first. The assembly continued to meet. Laws were passed. Trade continued. The Velthari celebrated their victory with great feasts. They told everyone that the humans had been a burden, a weight around the neck of true civilization. Now the galaxy could move forward without them. Then the ships started disappearing. The Meridian Trade Corridor was the longest shipping lane in the galaxy. It connected 3 spiral arms and carried goods worth more than most planets. For 200 years, human companies had managed it. Human traffic controllers guided ships through the dangerous nebulae. Human engineers maintained the jump beacons. Human negotiators settled disputes between competing merchants. No one had thought about what would happen when they left. The first freighter vanished in the Korath Nebula, then another, then 10 more. Without human controllers, ships were jumping blind into gravity wells and asteroid fields. The automated systems could not handle the complexity. The alien replacements could not work together. The Kthari accused the Dravshi of stealing beacon codes. The Dravshi accused the Kthari of sabotage. Within 2 months, the Meridian Trade Corridor was closed. Governor Vreth of the Draveshi agricultural world of Kalos IV watched his crops rot in their fields. His people were farmers. They grew food for 30 different species across 200 worlds, but now there were no ships to carry it. The corridor was too dangerous. The other routes were too long. He sent messages to the assembly. He begged for help. He received form letters and empty promises. On the other side of the galaxy, the Yemeni Federation was starving. They had always bought their food from the Dravshi. Now the shipments had stopped. Their leaders blamed the Draveshi for hoarding. The Draveshi blamed the Kthari for blocking the routes. The Kthari blamed everyone. Ambassador Kell of the Yemeni stood before the assembly and demanded action. Our children are dying, he said. We need the trade lanes reopened. High Speaker Morvath promised to form a committee. The committee would study the problem. They would issue a report in 6 months. We do not have 6 months, Kell said. No one listened. On the frontier world of Kalos 7, a Yemeni warship crossed into Kthari space. They were desperate. They needed supplies. The Kthari border patrol opened fire. The Yemeni ship fired back. By morning, both sides were sending fleets. High Counselor Sarathi watched the reports with growing horror. This was exactly what humans had always prevented. For 300 years, whenever two species moved toward war, human diplomats would appear. They would talk, they would listen, they would find solutions that no one else could see. They had a gift for it, a strange ability to understand what others were feeling. The Assembly's Mediation Council tried to intervene, but the council was led by the Vorn, a species that considered compromise to be weakness. They did not try to find common ground. They demanded that both sides submit to Vorn judgment. The Cathari refused. The Yemeni refused. The war continued. Sarathi called an emergency meeting with the other council members. "We must ask the humans to return," she said. "Before this spreads," the Veltari ambassador laughed. "We do not need humans. We have managed without them for millions of years." "Have we?" Sarathi asked. "Have we truly managed? Or have they been managing us?" No one wanted to answer that question. Meanwhile, other problems were appearing. On the station world of Nexus 1-2, a crime syndicate called the Black Void had taken control of 3 sectors. Human security forces had kept them contained for decades. Now there were no humans. The Black Void spread like a disease. They controlled the drug trade. They ran protection rackets. They kidnapped children from wealthy families. The Assembly sent peacekeepers. The peacekeepers demanded bribes to do their jobs. Some of them joined the criminals. On the science station of Perihelion, a research team studying a dangerous alien artifact lost containment. Human safety protocols had kept the artifact stable for 50 years. The alien replacements did not understand the protocols. They thought the humans had been too careful, too paranoid. The artifact exploded. The station was destroyed. 3,000 scientists died. Report after report crossed Sarathi's desk. Trade collapsing, wars spreading, crime rising, accidents multiplying. Each report had the same cause. Humans had been doing something important. No one had noticed. Now they were gone. And everything was falling apart. She began to study the old records. She wanted to understand what humans had actually done during their time in the Assembly. What she found amazed her. Humans had been everywhere. Not in positions of power. They had never wanted those. But in the small places, the forgotten corners, they ran the translation services that let 1,000 species understand each other. They maintained the computer systems that tracked shipping across the galaxy. They trained the doctors who treated diseases from different worlds. They wrote the laws that settled disputes fairly. They had woven themselves into every part of galactic civilization, not because they wanted control, but because they saw problems and could not stop themselves from fixing them. And now they were gone. Sarathi found an old recording in the archives. It was from 200 years ago, when a young human diplomat had addressed the Assembly for the first time. His name was James Chen, and he had been laughed at for his youth and his strange ideas. "We do not want to rule you," he had said. "We do not want to conquer you. We just want to help, because that is who we are. That is what humans do. We see someone in pain, and we try to make it better. We see a problem, and we try to solve it. We cannot help it. It is in our nature." The Assembly had dismissed him as naive, foolish. They had used humans without respecting them. They had taken without giving thanks. Now James Chen was long dead, and the galaxy was learning what his words had really meant. On the border of Terran space, a Nexari scout ship approached the defense platforms. Sarathi had sent it herself, without the Assembly's permission. She needed to know if the humans would talk. The platforms powered up their weapons. The scout ship transmitted a message. "We wish to speak with your leaders. Please. The galaxy needs you." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a single response came back. One word. "No." The scout ship returned to Nexara Prime with its message. Sarathi read it and felt something she had not felt in centuries. Fear. The humans were not coming back. And this was only the beginning. 2 years after the humans left, the Galactic Assembly broke apart. It did not happen in one moment. It happened slowly, like a building falling piece by piece. First, the small species stopped coming to meetings, then the medium ones. Then even the great powers began to ignore the Assembly's decisions. The Cathari-Yemeni War had spread far beyond its original borders. What started as a fight over food had become something much worse. Old hatreds rose to the surface. The Cathari remembered ancient wars. The Yemeni remembered old betrayals. Both sides committed terrible acts. Both sides blamed the other. 17 species were now involved. 4 entire sectors burned with conflict. Refugee ships fled in every direction, but no one would take them. The assembly passed resolutions demanding peace. No one listened. High Speaker Morvath resigned. He said he was tired. The truth was that he was ashamed. He had believed the assembly could survive anything. He had been wrong. The Dravshi hegemony, desperate and starving, made a terrible choice. Their food shipments had stopped completely. Their people were dying. Their leaders decided that if they could not trade for food, they would take it. They attacked the Meridian Coalition without warning. The coalition had been their allies for 1,000 years. Now they were enemies. The Dravshi seized 3 agricultural worlds in the first wave. They killed everyone who resisted. High Counselor Sarithi received the news in her chamber. She sat very still for a long time. Then she began to laugh. It was not a happy sound. "We were never united," she said to her assistant. "We only thought we were. The humans held us together, and we did not even notice." Her assistant, a young Nixari named Vel, looked confused. "How is that possible? We are the oldest civilization in the galaxy. We built the assembly ourselves." Sarithi shook her head. "We built a building. The humans made it a home. There is a difference," she tried to explain. The assembly had always had problems. Different species wanted different things. Old enemies sat next to each other and dreamed of revenge. The strong bullied the weak schemed against the strong. But somehow, it had worked. Somehow, peace had lasted, and Sarithi had never asked why. Now she understood. The humans had been the reason. They were not stronger than other species. Many races could crush them in battle. They were not smarter. Many races had technology far beyond human understanding. They did not live longer. A human life was a blink compared to a Nexari's centuries, but they had something no other species had. They believed in strangers. When a human saw someone suffering, they wanted to help. It did not matter if the sufferer was different. It did not matter if helping was dangerous or costly. Something inside humans made them reach out, made them connect, made them care. Other species found this strange. Weak. Foolish. Why help someone who might become your enemy? Why sacrifice for someone you did not know? It made no logical sense. But it worked. Humans made friends everywhere they went. They built bridges between species that had hated each other for millennia. They found common ground where none seemed to exist. They believed that enemies could become allies. And somehow, they made it true. The assembly had used this gift without understanding it. They had let humans do the hard work of keeping peace while taking credit for themselves. They had mocked human softness while benefiting from human kindness. Now the humans were gone, and the galaxy was learning what kindness was worth. Ambassador Threl Vox of the Velthari did not live to see the 3rd year. His own people killed him. The Velthari economy had collapsed. The slave trade that had made them rich was destroyed. The species they had oppressed were rising against them. Someone had to take the blame. Threlvox died screaming that it was not his fault, that he had only done what was best for his people, that the humans were the real enemy. No one believed him anymore. His last act was to send a message to the Terran border. It was a plea for help. He begged the humans to intervene. He promised anything they wanted: power, wealth, slaves of their own. The humans did not respond. On Earth, Secretary General Elena Vasquez read the message in her office. She had aged greatly in the 2 years since leaving the assembly. The weight of her decision pressed down on her. She had known there would be suffering. She had not known how much. Her advisor, a young man named David Okonkwo, stood by the window. He was a captain in the Terran fleet. He had volunteered to serve on the border, watching the chaos unfold. "We should help them," he said. Vasquez shook her head. "They voted against us. They called us weak. They said we were a disease. They were wrong. But does that mean we should let them die?" It was a hard question. Vasquez had asked it herself many times. Every night, she saw the faces of aliens she could not save, children burning in wars she could have stopped, families starving on worlds she could have fed. But she also remembered the vote, 847 to 12. She remembered Threl Vox calling her people insignificant. She remembered centuries of insults and disrespect. "They must learn," she said. "If we go back now, nothing changes. They will use us again. They will discard us again. We have to wait until they understand. Understand what? Okonkwo asked. Vasquez looked at him. Her eyes were tired but hard. That we are not tools to be used. We are not servants to be ordered. We are people, and we deserve to be treated as equals. Okonkwo wanted to argue, but he knew she was right. The galaxy had never respected humanity. They had only tolerated it. If humans returned now, that would never change. But waiting was hard. Every day, he watched ships burn. Every night, he heard the screams of refugees turned away from Terran borders. His hands itched to help. His heart ached to act. He was human. It was in his nature. On Nexera Prime, Sarithi made a decision. The assembly was dead. The old order was gone. But perhaps something new could rise from the ashes. She began to gather allies. The 12 species who had voted against Resolution 7291. Others who had come to regret their choice. Anyone who understood what the galaxy had lost. She called them the remnant. They were weak. They were few. But they remembered what humans had taught them. Sometimes the smallest voice can start the loudest echo. Sarithi sent another message to the Terran border. Not a demand this time. Not a plea for help. Just 3 words. We were wrong. And in the silence of space, she waited for an answer that might never come. 5 years after the humans left, the galaxy fell into darkness. The beacon network went silent. One by one, the great stations that allowed faster-than-light communication went dark. Some were destroyed in the wars. Some were abandoned when their crews fled. Some simply stopped working because no one knew how to fix them. For 3,000 years, any being in the galaxy could send a message to any other. Now entire sectors were cut off from each other. Ships jumped into systems and found only silence. Colonies waited for help that would never come. High Counselor Sarithi stood in the ruins of the Assembly Dome. The great glass ceiling had shattered in an attack 3 months ago. Now rain fell through the broken panels onto the empty seats below. 1,000 species had once gathered here to shape the future. Now it was home only to ghosts. The remnant had grown, but not enough. 53 species had joined her cause. They shared resources. They protected each other. They tried to keep some small light burning in the darkness, but it was not enough. It would never be enough. Sarithi was dying. She was old, even for a Nexari. Her body was failing. Her light was fading. She had perhaps months left, perhaps weeks. Before she died, she wanted to do one thing. She wanted to reach the humans. She had sent 17 messages to Terran space. 17 times, she had received no answer. But she would not stop trying. She could not. Her assistant Vel helped her to the communication array. It still worked. Barely. Sarithi composed her message carefully. She did not beg. She did not demand. She simply spoke the truth. I am Sarithi of the Nexari. I am one of the 12 who voted against your censure. I am dying. Before I go, I want you to know something. She paused. The words were hard to say. Pride was a heavy thing to carry, and harder still to put down. We were wrong. Not just about the vote. About everything. We thought you were children. We thought you were weak. We thought we were teaching you how to be civilized. She laughed softly. It hurt her fading body. You were teaching us. Every day, in 1,000 small ways, you were teaching us how to be better. How to care. How to hope. We did not see it. We were too proud. Too blind. She looked at Vel. The young Nexari was crying. Sarithi had not known her people could cry. The galaxy is dying. We cannot save it alone. We need you. Not your ships or your weapons. We need your heart. That strange, foolish, beautiful thing that makes you reach for strangers in the dark. She transmitted the message. Then she sat back and closed her eyes. They will not answer, Vel said. Perhaps not, Sarithi agreed. But I had to try. It is what a human would do. On Earth, Secretary General Elena Vasquez read the message in silence. Her hands trembled. She had read many messages from the dying galaxy. This one was different. This one was honest. She called a meeting of her parliament. The debate lasted for days. The isolationists were strong. They argued that humanity had suffered enough, that the galaxy had earned its fate, that going back would only bring more pain. Admiral David Okonkwo led the opposition. He was not young anymore. 5 years of watching the galaxy burn had aged him, but his voice was still strong. "We did not leave because we hated them," he said. "We left because we loved ourselves enough to demand respect. But love does not end. It does not say, 'You hurt me, so now I will watch you die.' That is not love. That is revenge." The isolationists shouted him down. They called him weak, sentimental, naive. Okonkwo smiled. "Yes," he said. "I am all of those things. I am human." The vote was close. 52 to 48. The parliament decided to maintain the isolation. No ships would cross the border. No aid would be sent. Vasquez accepted the decision. She was tired. So tired. Part of her agreed with the isolationists. The galaxy had hurt her people. Why should they help? But another part of her, the part that had become an ambassador in the first place, the part that had always believed in building bridges, that part was screaming. She ignored it. She went to bed. She tried to sleep. At 3 in the morning, her communicator buzzed. It was Okonkwo. "Come to the border," he said. "You need to see this." Vasquez flew to the edge of Terran space. What she saw there took her breath away. Ships. Hundreds of ships. Freighters loaded with food and medicine. Passenger vessels filled with doctors and engineers. Old warships pulled from storage. Crewed by veterans who remembered what humanity used to stand for. They were not military ships. They had no orders. They had simply come. Okonkwo stood on the observation deck of the command station. "They started arriving yesterday," he said. "Volunteers. People who could not watch anymore. People who remembered who we are." Vasquez stared at the fleet. "This is illegal." The parliament voted against intervention. "Yes." Okonkwo agreed. They did. But these people did not ask the parliament. They asked their hearts. One of the ships transmitted a message. It was a young woman, barely 20 years old. She was the captain of a medical frigate. "Secretary General," she said, "my grandmother came to Earth as a refugee 60 years ago. She always told me that humans help. That is what we do. That is who we are. I cannot sit behind walls while the galaxy dies. I will not." More messages came. Thousands of them. Each one said the same thing in different words. "We are human. We help. We cannot stop ourselves." Vasquez felt tears on her face. She had not cried in years. She had thought she was too hard for tears. She was wrong. She opened a channel to the fleet. Her voice shook, but her words were clear. "The parliament voted against intervention. As Secretary General, I have the authority to override that vote in cases of extreme humanitarian need." She paused. She thought of Sarathi, dying alone in the ruins of a dream. She thought of the children starving on worlds without names. She thought of her grandmother, who had signed the treaty that brought humanity into the stars. "I am declaring such a case now. All ships are authorized to cross the border. Admiral Okonkwo will command the relief fleet." Okonkwo straightened. "And you, Secretary General?" Vasquez smiled. It was the first real smile she had worn in 5 years. "I am coming with you. Someone needs to tell the galaxy that we have returned." The fleet powered up its engines. Thousands of lights blazed in the darkness. And for the first time in 5 years, human ships crossed the border into the void. The first human ship to enter the dying galaxy was a medical frigate called the Hope of Terra. It was old and slow. Its paint was faded. Its engines rattled. But it carried enough medicine to save 10,000 lives. And that was all that mattered. Captain Maya Chen stood on the bridge as her ship crossed the border. She was the young woman who had spoken to Secretary General Vasquez. Her grandmother's name was also Chen. 300 years ago, the first human diplomat to address the assembly had been James Chen. Some families never stopped believing. The frigate's first destination was a refugee station on the edge of Cathari space. 50,000 beings were crowded into a facility built for 10,000. They had no food, no medicine, no hope. The assembly had abandoned them. The warring powers had ignored them. When the Hope of Terra appeared on their sensors, the station commander did not believe it. She was a Cathari named Shrell, and she had learned long ago that no one was coming to help. Then she saw the flag on the ship's hull, the blue and green globe of Earth, the symbol she had not seen in 5 years. She began to shake. She could not stop. The Hope of Terra docked. Human doctors poured out, carrying supplies. They did not ask questions. They did not demand payment. They simply worked. For 18 hours straight, they treated the sick and fed the hungry. Shrell found Captain Chen in the station's medical bay. The young human was holding a Cathari child who had been crying. The child was asleep now, safe in strange arms. Why? Shrell asked. Her voice broke on the word. We voted against you. We said terrible things. Why did you come back? Chen looked at her. The young woman's eyes were tired but kind. Because you needed us, she said. That is all. That is enough. The news spread faster than any ship could travel. Humans were back. Humans were helping. On 100 burning worlds, beings who had lost all hope looked up and saw strange ships descending through smoke-filled skies. Admiral Okonkwo led the military vessels to the Cathari Yemeni front. The war had raged for 5 years. Millions were dead. Both sides were exhausted, but neither would stop. Pride would not let them. Okonkwo landed his flagship between the two fleets. It was a foolish thing to do. A single shot could destroy him. But humans had always been good at foolish bravery. He opened a channel to both sides. I am Admiral David Okonkwo, of the Terran Federation. I am here to offer you a choice. The Cathari fleet commander responded first. We do not need human interference. This is our war. You are right, Okonkwo said. It is your war. I cannot stop you from fighting, but I can tell you what I see. He transmitted images to both fleets. Images of the refugee stations. Images of the orphaned children. Images of the dead worlds that would never recover. I see a war that no one will win. I see two proud peoples destroying each other while the galaxy watches and weeps. I see the future dying because the past cannot be forgiven. He paused. Both fleets were silent. I offer you another choice. Put down your weapons. Come to the table. Talk. Not as enemies, but as people who have suffered too much and are ready for it to end. The Yemeni fleet commander spoke next. Her voice was rough with emotion. And if we refuse, then I will leave, Okonkwo said simply. I will not force you. I will not threaten you. I will simply go help someone else, and you can continue killing each other until there is no one left. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then the Cathari commander did something unexpected. He laughed. You humans are still insane, he said, flying into a war zone alone. Asking your enemies to talk. No other species would be so foolish. No, Okonkwo agreed. They would not. The commander was quiet for another moment. Then he powered down his weapons. Let us talk then. We have been fighting so long I have forgotten what peace sounds like. The Yemeni commander followed. One by one, the ships on both sides lowered their guns. Okonkwo let out a breath he had been holding for 5 years. On Nexara Prime, Secretary General Vasquez walked through the ruins of the assembly dome. Beside her walked Vel, the young Nexari who had become Serethi's heir. Serethi had died 2 days before the humans arrived. She had held on long enough to hear that they were coming. Her last words had been simple. Tell them thank you. Tell them I am sorry. Vasquez stood in the center of the broken chamber. Rain had stopped falling through the shattered ceiling. The sun was coming out. We should rebuild this place, she said. Vel shook his head. The assembly is dead. Its time has passed. Then we will build something new. Vasquez looked at him. Something better. Not an assembly where the strong rule the weak. A union where everyone has a voice. Where kindness is strength and compassion is wisdom. Vel considered this. The old powers will resist. They will say it cannot work. They said that about humans once. Vasquez replied. They were wrong then too. The new Galactic Union was founded 1 year later. It was not perfect. Nothing ever is. Old hatreds did not disappear overnight. New conflicts arose. The work of rebuilding would take generations. But something had changed. The galaxy had learned something it would never forget. The strong do not survive by crushing the weak. They survive by lifting them up. The wise do not win by outsmarting their enemies. They win by turning enemies into friends. The great civilizations of history were not built on conquest and fear. They were built on trust and hope. Humans had known this all along. They had tried to teach it for 300 years. The galaxy had not listened. Now they listened. Admiral Okonkwo became the first human to lead the Union's peacekeeping forces. Captain Chen became an ambassador. Like her ancestor before her, Secretary General Vasquez retired to a small house on Earth, where she spent her final years writing her memoirs. On the last page, she wrote, They asked me once why we left. I told them we left to prove our worth. That was true, but not the whole truth. We left because we were tired of giving without receiving, tired of caring without being cared for, tired of being used. They asked me why we came back. I told them we came back because they needed us. That was also true, but not the whole truth. We came back because we needed them, because being human means reaching out, even when it hurts, even when it costs us everything. We are not gods. We are not saints. We are just people who cannot stop hoping, cannot stop trying, cannot stop loving, even those who hate us. That is our gift. That is our curse. That is what makes us human. And in the end, that is what saved the galaxy. The book was published across 1,000 worlds. It was translated into 1,000 languages. Beings of every species read it and wept. And somewhere in the void, the stars kept burning, watched over by strange, soft creatures who had come from a small blue world. The humans had come home, and home was everywhere.